Welcome back. This is Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening is Jarrod Bleijie, the member for Kawana. Working in law, you originally studied on the Sunshine Coast and then made the move to QUT. At what point did you decide to move from the law into politics? I know you said those two didn't necessarily lead from one to the other. Why then the change to politics as a career?
I started, like many young people, finished high school and then wondered where to go and what to study and what to do. So I did have a bit of a gap year, and I did numerous things in the gap year, continued to work at KFCs, continued to help mum and dad in the camping business, and then worked in a chicken abattoir for a period of time as well, which was an experience in itself.
That'll punctuate your existence.
Well, it's certainly an experience that it was a good experience at the time. I can't say I'd want to go back there, but it was a job. You know, I've always been brought up that to succeed in life, you've got to help yourself, and so I always made sure that I had a job. You know, KFC and the chicken abattoir helped pay for my first car. So I started studying, and then what I in fact did, I was studying politics and business, and then there was a council by-election on the Sunshine Coast Regional Council. And I was 19 at the time, and it was a big call, and I thought, I love this area, I want to live here, I in the future want to have a family and have my kids growing up in this area and give them an opportunity that they can live, learn and earn on the Sunshine Coast. So we don't lose people, because we've got a problem with losing so many young people on the coast. They go away for opportunities. So I ran for council thinking that I could be part of that future opportunities for younger people, because I was young myself. Out of 11 candidates, I got third. And I look at the campaigns that I run now compared to what I did back then, and there's just so much a difference in what I do differently back then. But it's certainly, from a grassroots, I've always been a grassroots campaigner, and from a local level to what I now represent at the state level, a lot of the issues are still the same, and still the same. Obviously, the area that I wanted to represent in council, I now represent that and more in the state.
At what point did you realise that your party colleagues were now looking at you as a contender, as a prime candidate to move up the line, as it were?
I always said people, and I had teachers in high school, and they would say, so when are you going to get into politics? No one can ever determine when they're going to get into politics.
But you don't keep hearing that without starting to think about it.
Well, I was certainly thinking about it, and then thinking, well, when are these opportunities going to rise that people are talking about? And it wasn't until the Electoral Commission redistributed the Sunshine Coast state seats, the member for Kawana, Steve Dixon, moved to Buderim in a new seat, and that left a void and vacancy in Kawana. And I had been a member of the Liberal National Party for many, many years. I was the chairman of the Caloundra branch at the time, and I was having discussions with people about, who should we get to sort of put forward and nominate for the seat of Kawana? And I was waiting for someone to suggest me. And anyway, it then happened, and I can remember we were in a place in Caloundra. There was about 10 of us sitting around a table talking about the seat of Kawana, and it was one bloke, Greg Robertson, a dentist in Kawana, that said, I'm going to throw something out, I think we should support Jarrod. And it was that endorsement that then it was sort of like this just movement then that just started creating the circles, and then people got behind me, and that's how it all happened.
Would you describe yourself as ambitious? Did that give credence to your own thought process about where you should be heading?
I'm ambitious, but I certainly, at that stage, I thought I could do the job. I wanted to do the job.
Think you could do it better than you were seeing it being done at that stage?
Well, it was a completely different area. So, the Sunshine Coast is predominantly represented by Liberal National Party colleagues. So it wasn't that the area wasn't being represented, it was that the representative went to represent another area, just with redistribution. And the majority of the old area fell into his new area. So, but it wasn't until that conversation we had around this table that, I thought I could do it. I thought, I've got some ideas, I've got the passion, I've got the drive, I've lived in the area, I know the area. But I wasn't too ambitious to then stand up and say, guys, I want this job. I waited until people started to talk about it and then felt comfortable, and then something clicked and they said, yep, Jarrod's the one we want to support. And once I had that support base, then it was sort of just a tide just sort of coming in and behind me and helping me, give me that opportunity.
You don't get to where you are in your life now without having a certain amount of drive. You have higher aspirations in your political career?
I think everyone does. I wouldn't have suspected in my first term in government that I would be appointed to such a senior role in Shadow Cabinet. John Paul Langbrook, the leader at the time, gave me that opportunity as Shadow Attorney General. And, there will always be, young people will always have difficulties with this perception of age. And I remember when I got pre-selected, and just before I got pre-selected to represent the seat of Kawana, people still said, is your timing right? But I started asking the question, what time? What time is right to be a politician? Do I wait till I'm 40? Do I wait till I'm 50?
Yeah.
What if the opportunity's not there and then I'm in retirement? And I think, my good friend White Roy has proved that the case as being the youngest member elected to federal parliament.
Yeah.
So on the coast, we have one of the youngest councillors, we have the youngest federal member, and we have the second youngest state member at the moment. And I just think the Sunshine Coast is great, providing great opportunities for younger people.
Probably fair to say that there's a changing of the guard right across the political landscape, state politics in Queensland at the moment. A lot of younger people coming through into politics, a lot of people retiring. It's an interesting and exciting time for a lot of reasons.
Oh, look, I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic time in politics. It's an opportunity, I think, that Queenslanders have here. I certainly hope to put as much as I can into the seat of Kawana and get re-elected. But I certainly am encouraged and love what I'm doing at the moment. I thoroughly enjoy being the Shadow Attorney General as we travel the state and talk about access to justice issues, equality, all the issues that come with quite a major portfolio in terms of legislative portfolio. Lots of legislation, big legislation, and in terms of, if you look at the Parliament in the last 3 years, quite burdensome in terms of the legislation that's gone through the House. But thoroughly enjoying being the member for Kawana with my constituents, but then the broader issue and the broader responsibility for Queensland in terms of making sure that, I as the Shadow Minister have appropriate policies and good policies that we can put to the people in the next election, which we're waiting on, eagerly waiting with anticipation.
It's not very far away now. I mean, we're just about out of time. Where do you see yourself in 10, 20 years' time? Do you have a timeline for your political career and something else that you'd like to achieve in your life, or is it way too early to even be thinking about that far ahead?
Look, I think there's an element of way too early to be thinking about that. But look, I love what I'm doing, and I see there's great opportunities in Queensland, and I see there's great things that we need to get right in Queensland. I'm a part of this whole train now with Campbell Newman about getting Queensland back on track, and I'm just excited about the opportunities that presents. And with those sorts of opportunities, one never knows where you'll end up or what you'll end up doing.
Absolutely.
But I'm just encouraged, by Campbell, and I hope that I can be and play a role if he has the privilege of being Premier of the state.
We'll be watching with interest.
Great.
Jarrod, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me on the program.
You've been watching Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening, the Shadow Attorney General, Jarrod Bleijie. My name is Shaun Bindley, and I look forward to joining you again next week.